Howard Daniels checked his watch as he stood outside First Capital Trust. It was 2:15 p.m., 15 minutes before his appointment. He straightened his blue tie and brushed an invisible speck from his dark gray suit. Today was important. After weeks of talks, he was ready to move several major client accounts to this bank. In total, these accounts were worth over $2.6 billion. Howard ran his own investment firm that managed money for wealthy people and big companies. At 42, he had built his business from nothing into one of the most respected firms in the city. His clients trusted him because he was careful with their money and got good results. "Let's get this done," Howard said to himself as he pushed through the heavy glass doors of the bank. Inside, the bank was busy but not crowded. The marble floor gleamed under bright lights. Well-dressed bank workers moved between desks, talking with customers. Howard walked to the front desk where a woman named Linda Carter sat. She wore a name tag on her black blazer. "Good afternoon," Howard said with a smile. "I have a 2:30 appointment with Mr. Frank Phillips, the senior vice president." Linda looked up. Her smile faded when she saw Howard. Her eyes moved from his face to his expensive suit, then back to his face. She frowned slightly. "Do you have an ID?" she asked. Her voice was colder than it had been with the white customer who had just left her desk. "Of course," Howard said, still smiling. He took out his driver's license and slid it across the desk. He also pulled out his business card that showed he was the CEO of Daniels Investment Management. Linda looked at both items for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and dialed a number. "There's someone here claiming to have an appointment with Mr. Phillips," she said quietly into the phone. She emphasized the word claiming, as if she didn't believe Howard. Howard noticed this, but kept his face neutral. This wasn't the first time he had faced this kind of treatment. "Please have a seat," Linda said after hanging up. "Someone will come get you." Howard nodded and sat down in the waiting area. He opened his briefcase and reviewed his notes for the meeting. The bank stood to make millions in fees if they got his business. Several of his biggest clients had specifically asked about moving their money to First Capital Trust because of its good reputation. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Howard watched as 3 other customers came in after him. All of them were white. All of them were helped right away. At 2:40 p.m., Howard was still waiting. His appointment time had come and gone. He walked back to Linda's desk. "Excuse me," he said politely. "My appointment was for 2:30. Mr. Phillips is expecting me. Could you check on the status?" Linda looked annoyed. "Sir, please return to your seat. Someone will be with you when they're ready." Howard took a deep breath. "I understand you're busy, but I had a scheduled appointment. My name is Howard Daniels. Could you at least call Mr. Phillips to let him know I'm here?" Instead of answering, Linda pressed a button under her desk. Within moments, 2 security guards appeared. One was a tall man named George Butler. The other was shorter but muscular, with the name Rick Simmons on his badge. "Is there a problem here?" George asked, looking only at Linda. "This man is being disruptive," Linda said. "He won't return to his seat as requested." Howard was shocked. "There must be some misunderstanding. I'm simply asking about my appointment with Mr. Phillips. I'm already 10 minutes late for our meeting." Rick, the shorter guard, moved closer to Howard. "Sir, you need to calm down." "I am calm," Howard said, confused by the guard's aggressive tone. "I'm just trying to make it to my appointment." Several customers were now watching. Some had taken out their phones and were recording the scene. "I'm going to need you to come with us," George said, grabbing Howard's arm. Howard pulled back. "Please don't touch me. I just need someone to call Mr. Phillips. This is completely unnecessary." Rick grabbed Howard's other arm. "We don't want any trouble. You need to leave now." "This is ridiculous," Howard said, his voice rising slightly. "I have an appointment. I'm a client bringing billions in business to this bank." The guards didn't listen. They tightened their grip and began pulling Howard toward the door. His briefcase fell to the floor, papers spilling out. Howard tried to reach for them, but the guards yanked him away. "My papers. My briefcase." Howard called out. "You can't do this. Call Mr. Phillips." More people were recording now. Howard could see their phones pointed at him as the guards dragged him across the marble floor. His expensive shoes squeaked against the surface as he tried to resist. "I have an appointment," Howard repeated. "This is discrimination. I'm a client." The guards pushed through the front doors, still holding Howard tightly. Once outside, they released him with a shove. Howard stumbled but caught himself before falling. "Don't come back or we'll call the police," George warned. Howard straightened his jacket, his hands shaking slightly. "My briefcase and papers are still inside." "We'll have someone bring them out," Rick said. Then both guards went back inside, leaving Howard standing alone on the sidewalk. People walked past, some staring, others pretending not to notice. Howard felt a mix of anger, shame, and shock. In all his years in business, he had faced subtle racism, but nothing this blatant and public. Inside the bank, Linda was gathering Howard's papers and putting them back in his briefcase when her phone rang. She answered it, Linda speaking. "This is Frank Phillips. Is Howard Daniels there yet? He's bringing over $2.6 billion in potential deposits, and I wanted to make sure the red carpet was rolled out for him." Linda's face went pale. "Mr. Phillips, there's been a situation." Outside, Howard took out his phone with still trembling hands. He called his assistant, Judy Green. "Judy, cancel all my meetings for the rest of the day, then get me Jack Moore at River Edge Financial on the phone. Tell him I'm reconsidering his offer." Howard then made another call to Diane Powell, CEO of Powell Industries and one of his biggest clients. "Diane, it's Howard. You're not going to believe what just happened at First Capital Trust." As Howard described the incident, a security guard came out with his briefcase. The guard set it down on the sidewalk without a word and went back inside. Howard picked it up, still talking to Diane. "No, I'm fine, just angry." "Yes, they really did drag me out." "No, they never called Phillips. I know several people were recording. It'll probably be online soon." Howard looked back at the bank. Through the glass doors, he could see people still staring at him. Some looked confused, others embarrassed. Howard turned away and continued his conversation. "I think we should reconsider moving your accounts there. Actually, I'm thinking of moving all my clients' funds elsewhere. River Edge has been courting my business for months." As Howard walked to his car, he didn't know that videos of the incident were already being uploaded to social media. He didn't know that they would spread like wildfire over the next few hours. And he didn't know that by Monday morning, First Capital Trust would be facing the biggest crisis in its history. What Howard did know was that he would never set foot in that bank again, and neither would his $2.6 billion in client deposits. Howard sat in his car for several minutes trying to calm down. His heart was still beating fast. He could feel sweat on his back from the struggle with the guards. He took deep breaths and looked at his reflection in the rearview mirror. His tie was crooked and his suit jacket had a small tear on the sleeve. "Get it together," he told himself. "Don't let them see they got to you." He fixed his tie and started the car. As he drove away from First Capital Trust, his phone rang through the car speakers. It was Frank Phillips, the senior vice president he was supposed to meet. "Howard, what happened?" "I just heard there was some kind of problem downstairs," Frank said, sounding worried. Howard kept his voice steady. "Your security guards dragged me out of the bank when I asked about my appointment with you." "What?" "That's impossible," Frank sounded shocked. "I've been waiting for you. We had everything ready in the conference room." "Well, your front desk staff never called you," Howard said. "Instead, they called security when I asked about the delay." "I am so sorry," Frank said. "This is completely unacceptable. Please come back. I'll meet you at the door myself." Howard shook his head, even though Frank couldn't see him. "No, Frank, I'm not coming back. Not today. Maybe not ever." "Howard, please, this must be a misunderstanding. We value your business." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," Howard said firmly. "It was discrimination. Plain and simple, and it was caught on video by at least a dozen people." There was silence on the other end of the line. Frank seemed to understand the seriousness of the situation. "What can I do to make this right?" Frank finally asked. "Nothing right now," Howard said. "I need to think about this, and you need to figure out what kind of bank you're running." He ended the call. By the time Howard got home, Videos of the incident were already spreading online. His phone kept buzzing with messages. Friends, family, and clients were all asking if he was okay and what had happened. Howard's wife, Patty, rushed to the door when he came in. "Are you all right? Your sister called me. She saw a video of you being thrown out of a bank. What happened?" Howard hugged his wife tightly. "I'm okay, just angry and a little shaken up." He explained what had happened as they sat in their living room. Patty listened, her face showing shock and then anger. "That's outrageous," she said when he finished. "You should sue them." Howard shook his head. "I don't want a long legal battle, but I do want consequences." His phone rang again. This time it was Diane Powell, the CEO he had called right after the incident. "Howard, I just saw the video," Diane said. "It's worse than you described. Those guards manhandled you." "I know," Howard said. "It's still hard to believe it happened." "I've made a decision," Diane said firmly. "Powell Industries is pulling all our accounts from First Capital Trust first thing Monday morning. That's $380 million they just lost." "Thank you for the support, Diane," Howard said. "It's not just support," Diane replied. "It's good business. I can't trust a bank that treats people this way. Who else are you moving your clients to?" "I'm thinking River Edge Financial," Howard said. "Jack Moore has been asking for our business for months. I called him earlier and he's preparing their best offer right now." "Good. Let me know what they offer. We might move our accounts there, too." After talking with Diane, Howard received more calls. 3 more major clients had seen the videos and were angry. All of them said they would move their money out of First Capital Trust. By evening, the videos had spread to news websites. One headline read, "Successful Black investment manager dragged out of bank, despite $2.6 billion in potential deposits." First Capital Trust released a short statement. "We are aware of an incident at our main branch today. We take all customer concerns seriously and are investigating the matter. We will provide more information after a full review." Howard noticed they didn't apologize or mention him by name. Later that night, as Howard and Patty were getting ready for bed, the bank's CEO, Gregory White, called. "Mr. Daniels, this is Gregory White, CEO of First Capital Trust. I want to personally apologize for what happened today." "A bit late for that," Howard said. "Your bank lost a lot of business today." "I understand you're upset and you have every right to be," Gregory said. "But I hope we can meet and discuss how to make this right." "There's nothing to discuss right now," Howard replied. "Your bank showed me who they really are today." "The actions of a few employees don't represent our values," Gregory insisted. "Don't they?" Howard asked. "Because it seemed very systematic to me. The front desk woman didn't believe I had an appointment. She never called Mr. Phillips. She called security instead. The guards didn't ask questions, they just removed me. That shows a culture with problems, Mr. White." Gregory was quiet for a moment. "What can we do to keep your business?" "You're missing the point," Howard said. "This isn't just about business anymore. It's about dignity and respect. Your bank failed that test today." After hanging up, Howard turned to his wife. "They're starting to realize what this will cost them." "Good," Patty said. "Hit them where it hurts. Their bottom line." Sunday morning brought more fallout. The videos had gone viral overnight. Howard's phone showed dozens of missed calls, hundreds of text messages, and thousands of social media notifications. National news programs were covering the story. Financial news channels were discussing the potential impact on First Capital Trust. The bank's stock had already dropped in after-hours trading on Friday. Howard spent Sunday on the phone with Jack Moore from River Edge Financial. By afternoon, they had worked out a deal for Howard to move his clients' accounts to their bank. River Edge offered excellent terms, knowing the value of Howard's business. "We'll have everything ready first thing Monday," Jack promised. "Our bank president wants to meet you and personally welcome you." "That's the kind of treatment I expect," Howard said. Howard also spoke with his legal team. They advised him on his rights and possible actions against First Capital Trust. Howard decided not to file a lawsuit immediately, but kept it as an option. By Sunday evening, Howard had calls from the NAACP and other civil rights organizations, offering support. Several business groups wanted him to speak about his experience. First Capital Trust issued a second statement, this time with a direct apology to Howard by name. "We deeply regret the treatment Mr. Daniels received at our bank. This does not reflect our values or standards. We have placed the employees involved on administrative leave pending a full investigation. But it was too late. The damage was done. Howard's clients were already preparing to move their money. First Capital Trust's reputation was severely damaged. Financial analysts predicted Monday would be a very bad day for the bank. As Howard prepared for bed Sunday night, he felt tired but resolved. Tomorrow would be busy with moving accounts and dealing with the media, but he was ready. Sometimes, respect has to be taught, Howard told Patty as they turned out the lights. And tomorrow, First Capital Trust is going to learn a very expensive lesson. Monday morning arrived with dark clouds and light rain. Howard woke up early, dressed in his best suit, and drove to River Edge Financial. He wanted to be there when it opened at 9 a.m. to start the process of moving his client's money. Jack Moore, the bank's vice president, was waiting for him at the entrance. "Good morning, Howard," Jack said with a warm smile. He extended his hand. "Thank you for trusting us with your business." Howard shook Jack's hand firmly. "Thank you for being ready on such short notice." "We've been preparing all weekend," Jack said as he led Howard inside. "The bank president is excited to meet you." The president of River Edge Financial, Carol Martinez, greeted Howard in a large conference room. Coffee, water, and pastries were set out on the table. 3 other bank executives stood as Howard entered. "Mr. Daniels, welcome to River Edge," Carol said. "We're honored to have your business." Howard nodded. "Thank you for the warm welcome." "We've prepared all the paperwork to transfer your clients' accounts," Carol explained. "Our team will work through lunch and stay late if needed to make sure everything is done properly and quickly." Howard smiled for the first time since Friday. This was how a bank should treat an important client. As they discussed the details, Howard's phone buzzed with an alert. He checked it and saw a news headline. First Capital Trust shares dropped 12% in pre-market trading. He showed it to Jack, who nodded. "Not surprising. The market is reacting to what happened. Word travels fast in financial circles." At 9:30 a.m., the stock market opened. First Capital Trust's stock immediately fell further. Financial news channels were covering the story live, showing clips from the viral videos of Howard being dragged out. At First Capital Trust, an emergency board meeting had been called. Gregory White, the CEO, faced angry board members in the main conference room. "How could this happen?" asked Edward Lane, the board chairman. "This is a disaster. We're doing everything we can to control the damage," Gregory said. "I've personally called Mr. Daniels to apologize." "And?" Edward asked. "He wasn't receptive," Gregory admitted. "He's moving his business elsewhere." "How much are we talking about?" another board member asked. "Initial reports said $2.6 billion in potential deposits," Gregory said. "But it's worse? Now, we're hearing that several existing clients are withdrawing their funds too." "Which clients?" Edward demanded. "Powell Industries has already started the process to withdraw $380 million, Gregory reported. 3 other major corporate clients have indicated they'll do the same. Together, that's another $425 million. The room went silent as the board members calculated the damage. "That's over $800 million in confirmed withdrawals," Edward said slowly. "And we lost the potential $2.6 billion from Daniels' clients. The withdrawals could reach $1.2 billion by the end of the day," Gregory added quietly. "Many smaller clients are following Diane Powell's lead." Edward slammed his hand on the table. "This is unacceptable. Who was responsible for this disaster?" "The security guards have been fired," Gregory said. "The front desk employee has been suspended. We're investigating how this happened." "Too little, too late," Edward said. "The damage is done." Back at River Edge Financial, Howard worked steadily with Jack and his team. By noon, they had processed transfer requests for over $1.5 billion in assets. Diane Powell had arrived personally to sign the papers moving her company's accounts. This is the right decision, Diane told Howard as they had lunch together in the bank's executive dining room. I've sent an email to the National Business Leadership Council about what happened. That's 500 CEOs and business leaders who now know about First Capital Trust's actions. Howard nodded. I didn't want it to become this big, but maybe it needed to. It's not just about you, Howard, Diane said. It's about changing how banks treat people. Money talks in this world. First Capital Trust needs to learn that discrimination is bad for business. At 2 p.m., Frank Phillips from First Capital Trust arrived at River Edge Financial. He asked to speak with Howard. Mr. Daniels is in meetings, the receptionist said. Do you have an appointment? Frank looked uncomfortable. No, but it's urgent. Please tell him Frank Phillips is here. The receptionist called Howard, who agreed, to see Frank in a small meeting room. Thank you for meeting me, Frank said when Howard entered. I wanted to apologize in person for what happened. Howard sat down across from Frank. I appreciate that, but it doesn't change anything. The bank is in trouble, Howard, Frank said. We've lost over $1.2 billion in deposits today alone. Our stock is down 18% now. The board is in emergency meetings. That's not my problem, Howard replied. That's the cost of how your bank treated me. Frank leaned forward. What will it take to bring you back? The bank is prepared to offer you special terms, waived fees, higher interest rates for your clients. Howard shook his head. It's too late for that. I've already signed agreements with River Edge. My client's money is being transferred as we speak. We'll offer you a personal settlement, Frank said desperately. The bank will compensate you for the emotional distress. This isn't about money for me, Howard said firmly. It's about respect and dignity. Your bank failed to provide that. After Frank left, Howard returned to the conference room where Jack was finalizing more transfers. What did he want? Jack asked. To offer special terms if I'd come back. Howard said. Jack smiled. Too late for that, I guess. Much too late, Howard agreed. By 4 p.m., financial news networks reported that First Capital Trust had lost over $1.8 billion in deposits, with more withdrawals expected the next day. The bank's stock had fallen 21%, erasing over $3 billion in market value in a single day. Gregory White, the CEO, appeared on a financial news channel to try to calm investors. We deeply regret the incident involving Mr. Daniels, Gregory said. It does not reflect our values as an institution. We are taking immediate steps to address what happened and ensure it never happens again. The interviewer asked tough questions. Is it true that you've lost nearly $2 billion in deposits today? How will this affect your liquidity? Are you concerned about a possible bank run? Gregory tried to sound confident, but the strain showed on his face. We remain a strong, well-capitalized bank. This is a serious incident, but we will weather it. Howard watched the interview from his new office at River Edge Financial. Jack had provided him with a temporary space to work as they processed the transfers. He looks worried, Jack commented. He should be, Howard replied. Actions have consequences. By the end of the business day, Howard had successfully moved over $2 billion in client assets to River Edge Financial. More transfers would be completed the next day. As Howard drove home that evening, he felt a mix of emotions. He was still angry about how he had been treated, but he also felt a sense of satisfaction. The bank that had disrespected him was facing serious consequences. His phone rang through the car speakers. It was Patty. How did it go today? She asked. Better than expected, Howard said. River Edge treated me like a valued client from the moment I walked in, and First Capital Trust is in serious trouble. Good, Patty said. They deserve it. The story is everywhere, Howard added. I've had calls from CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News asking for interviews. Are you going to do them? Patty asked. Howard thought for a moment. I think I will. Not to gloat, but to make sure people understand why this matters. It's bigger than just one incident now. I'm proud of you, Patty said. You're turning something terrible into something meaningful. As Howard pulled into his driveway, he saw news vans parked on his street. Reporters noticed his car and began moving toward him. Looks like the media found our house, Howard told. Hattie, I'll call you back. Howard took a deep breath, straightened his tie, and stepped out of his car to face the reporters. The real story was just beginning. Howard stepped out of his car and faced the reporters who rushed toward him. Camera lights flashed as microphones were pushed in his direction. "Mr. Daniels, can you tell us what happened at First Capital Trust?" one reporter called out. "How much money did the bank lose today?" asked another. Howard raised his hands to quiet them. "I'll make a brief statement, but then I need to go inside to my family." The reporters grew quiet, cameras still recording. "On Friday, I went to First Capital Trust for a scheduled meeting about moving billions in client assets to their bank," Howard said calmly. "Instead of being treated like a valued client, I was dragged out by security when I simply asked about my appointment. Today, those clients took their business elsewhere. This isn't just about me. It's about how people are judged by their appearance rather than their character or credentials." "Will you be suing the bank?" a reporter asked. "I haven't decided," Howard replied. "But what happened to me happens to many people of color every day. The difference is that I had billions of dollars behind me, so people paid attention. That shouldn't be necessary to be treated with basic respect." After answering a few more questions, Howard went inside his house. Patty greeted him with a hug. "You handled that well," she said. "Very dignified." "I'm trying to be," Howard said. "This story isn't going away." The next morning, Tuesday, Howard's interview appeared on several news programs. Financial news channels continued to track First Capital Trust's troubles. The bank's stock had fallen another 8% in pre-market trading. Howard arrived at River Edge. Financial early again. Jack Moore met him with a cup of coffee. "You're famous now," Jack said, showing Howard the front page of the Wall Street Journal. The headline read, "Bank faces crisis after ejecting black executive, 2.1 B gone in one day." Howard shook his head. "Not the kind of fame I was looking for." "How are you holding up?" Jack asked as they walked to the conference room. "Better today," Howard said. "Yesterday was overwhelming." As they continued processing account transfers, Howard received a call from a number he didn't recognize. He answered cautiously. "Mr. Daniels?" "This is Edward Lane, chairman of the board at First Capital Trust." Howard was surprised. "Mr. Lane, I didn't expect to hear from you." "I wanted to speak with you personally," Edward said. "What happened to you at our bank was inexcusable. There's no justification for it." "I appreciate you saying that," Howard replied. "The board met until midnight," Edward continued. "We've made some decisions I wanted you to hear directly from me." Howard listened carefully. "Gregory White has resigned as CEO, effective immediately," Edward said. "The branch manager has also been removed. We're implementing mandatory training for all employees, and we're creating a new executive position focused on diversity and inclusion." "Those are positive steps," Howard acknowledged. "We'd like to meet with you," Edward added. "Not to try to win back your business, I understand that ship has sailed, but to listen and learn how we can do better." Howard thought for a moment. "I'm willing to meet, but not right away. Let the dust settle first." "Thank you," Edward said. "That's more than fair." After the call, Howard told Jack about the conversation. "They're in damage control mode," Jack commented. "Yes, but at least they're taking it seriously now," Howard said. Throughout Tuesday, more clients pulled money from First Capital Trust. By noon, the total withdrawals had reached $2.6 billion, exactly the amount Howard had originally planned to bring to the bank. Financial analysts began questioning whether First Capital Trust could survive the crisis. The bank's stock continued to fall, dropping to less than half its value from just days earlier. At 2:00 p.m., Howard gave his first televised interview to a major network. The interview took place at River Edge Financial, with the bank's permission. "Did you expect this level of fallout?" the interviewer asked. "No," Howard answered honestly. "I thought my clients would follow me to another bank, but I didn't expect other clients to withdraw their funds or for the stock to fall so dramatically." "Do you feel vindicated?" Howard shook his head. "I don't see it that way. This isn't about revenge. It's about consequences for actions. Banks need to understand that treating people with dignity isn't just the right thing to do. It's also good business. What would you say to other banks watching this situation? Take a hard look at your culture, Howard said. Ask yourself if everyone who walks through your doors gets the same level of respect and service. If not, fix it before it costs you billions. The interview was watched by millions. Howard's calm, measured responses earned him praise from business, leaders, and civil rights advocates alike. By the end of Tuesday, First Capital Trust announced emergency measures to stop the bleeding. They increased interest rates on deposits, eliminated account fees, and announced a $50 million investment in programs supporting minority businesses. But for many customers, it was too late. The total withdrawals had reached $3.2 billion, and more were expected. On Wednesday morning, Howard received calls from other investment managers asking for advice on moving their clients to River Edge Financial. Word is spreading through the industry, Jack told Howard. You've started something big, Howard nodded. I never wanted to be the face of this issue, but here we are. At noon, Howard received another surprising call. It was from the mayor of the city. Mr. Daniels, I want to commend you for how you've handled this situation, the mayor said. You've turned a terrible personal experience into an important moment for our city. Thank you, Mayor, Howard replied. I'm putting together a task force on equitable banking practices, the mayor continued. I'd like you to be part of it. Howard thought about it. I'll do it. This is an opportunity to create real change. That afternoon, more news broke. 2 of the employees involved in the incident at First Capital Trust gave interviews to local news stations. Linda Carter, the front desk employee, admitted that she had been trained to be extra cautious with certain customers. We were told to watch for people who didn't seem to belong, she said. Looking back, I see how wrong that was. I made assumptions about Mr. Daniels based on how he looked, not on who he was. George Butler, one of the security guards, also spoke out. We were following what we thought were the bank's policies. We were wrong, and I deeply regret my actions. Howard watched these interviews in Jack's office. At least they're being honest, now, he said. Too late for First Capital Trust, Jack replied. Their stock is down 52% now. There's talk they might be acquired by a larger bank. Howard shook his head, all because they couldn't treat a black man in a suit with basic respect. By Wednesday evening, the total withdrawals from First Capital Trust had reached $3.8 billion. Financial analysts were calling it the Daniels effect, when discrimination leads to financial disaster. As Howard drove home that evening, he reflected on the events of the past 5 days. His life had changed dramatically. He was now not just an investment manager, but a symbol of something larger. He hadn't asked for this role, but he decided to embrace it. If his experience could help change how banks and other businesses treated people of color, then something good would come from it. When he arrived home, Patty met him at the door with a smile. I have news, she said. Time magazine wants to put you on their cover. The headline will be, The $4 Billion Lesson. Howard laughed softly. This is getting bigger than I ever imagined. You started something important, Patty said. People are listening now. Howard nodded. Yes, they are. And I have a lot more to say? 6 months had passed since the day Howard was dragged out of First Capital Trust. It was a warm summer morning as he stood outside the new community center in the city's east side. A crowd had gathered for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Howard held a large pair of scissors ready to cut the red ribbon stretched across the entrance. This center will provide financial education to young people in our community, Howard told the crowd. They will learn about saving, investing, and building wealth. They will also learn their rights as customers of banks and other financial institutions. The crowd applauded as Howard cut the ribbon. Cameras flashed. The mayor stood beside him, smiling broadly. This center was funded by the Howard Daniels Foundation, which Howard had created with part of his increased earnings since the incident. River Edge Financial had grown significantly, with many clients following Howard there. His own investment firm had nearly doubled in size after the DUI ceremony. Howard walked through the center with Patty. They looked at the classrooms, computer lab, and meeting spaces. "You've done something wonderful here," Patty said. Howard nodded. Something good had to come from what happened. Much had changed in the 6 months since that Friday afternoon at First Capital Trust. The bank had never recovered from the crisis. After losing over $4.5 billion in deposits, they had been bought by a larger bank at a fraction of their previous value. The First Capital Trust name no longer existed. Howard's story had become a case study taught in business schools across the country. The Daniels effect was now a term used to describe the severe financial consequences that could result from discrimination. The Time magazine cover featuring Howard had led to appearances on talk shows, news programs, and even a meeting with the president at the White House. Howard had used each opportunity to speak about the importance of fair treatment in banking and business. Howard's phone rang. It was Diane Powell. "Are you watching the Senate hearing?" she asked. "Not yet," Howard replied. "I've been at the center opening." "Turn it on when you get home," Diane said. "They're discussing the new banking regulations. Your name has been mentioned several times. The Banking Equality Act, inspired in part by Howard's experience, was moving through Congress. If passed, it would require banks to provide regular training to employees on fair treatment and would impose severe penalties for discrimination. "I'll watch it later," Howard promised. After touring the center, Howard and Patty drove home. They had moved to a new house in a gated community after receiving too much attention at their old home. Fame had brought both opportunities and challenges. At home, Howard turned on the TV to watch the Senate hearing. A senator was speaking about the need for the new banking law. "What happened to Howard Daniels could happen to any person of color in America," the senator said. "But most don't have billions of dollars to make banks pay attention. This law will protect everyone regardless of their wealth." Howard watched thoughtfully. He had been asked to testify at an earlier hearing, sharing his experience in detail. The video of him being dragged out had been played for the senators, many of whom had looked shocked despite having surely seen it before. Howard's phone rang again. It was Jack Moore from River Edge Financial. "Great news," Jack said. "We just signed another major client who left First National Bank after they heard about their discriminatory lending practices." "Which client?" Howard asked. "Western Technologies," Jack replied. "That's $600 million in new deposits." "Good," Howard said. "The message is spreading." After the call, Howard sat on his back porch with Patty, enjoying the peaceful evening. "Got another book offer today," Howard told her. "They want me to write about my experience and what businesses can learn from it." "Are you going to do it?" Patty asked. Howard nodded. "I think so. It's another way to spread the message." The message was simple. Treat everyone with dignity and respect, or face consequences. It was a lesson that Howard had taught the banking industry in the most dramatic way possible. Later that evening, Howard received an email from a young black man named Kevin Harris. Kevin had been inspired by Howard's story to pursue a career in finance. He was now studying business at college and hoped to become an investment manager like Howard. "You showed me that we belong in these spaces," Kevin wrote. "Thank you for standing up and making a difference." Howard replied immediately, offering encouragement and advice. He had received hundreds of similar messages in the past months. Each one reminded him that his ordeal had a purpose beyond himself. The next morning, Howard went to his office at River Edge Financial. The bank had created a special position for him, Executive Vice President of Client Relations. In this role, Howard helped shape the bank's policies on customer service and fair treatment. Edward Lane, the former chairman of First Capital Trust, was waiting in Howard's office. "Thank you for seeing me," Edward said as Howard entered. Howard shook his hand. "What can I do for you?" "I wanted to update you on what happened to the employees involved in the incident," Edward said. "Linda Carter, the front desk woman, now works for a nonprofit that trains bank employees on unconscious bias." "That's good to hear," Howard said. "The security guards have had a harder time," Edward continued. "George Butler is working as a night watchman at a warehouse. Rick Simmons is still unemployed." Howard nodded. He felt no joy in hearing about their struggles. Everyone has to face the consequences of their actions, he said simply. I also wanted to let you know that I'm teaching a course at the business school now, Edward added. I use your case as the primary example of how a failure of culture can destroy a company. I hope your students learn from it, Howard said. After Edward left, Howard sat at his desk and looked at the framed Time magazine cover on his wall. His serious face looked back at him under the headline, The $4 Billion Lesson. Howard never wanted to be famous this way. He had simply wanted to be treated with respect when he walked into a bank. But now that he had this platform, he was determined to use it well. His assistant buzzed him. Your 10 o'clock appointment is here. The group of young bankers from the trainee program. Send them in, Howard said. 10 young people entered his office, a diverse group of men and women just starting their banking careers. Howard stood to greet them. Welcome, he said. Today we're going to talk about the most important thing you'll learn in your banking career. It's not about interest rates or investment strategies. It's about treating every person who walks through your door with dignity and respect. The trainees listened attentively as Howard began to tell his story. He had told it many times now, but it still mattered. It would always matter. As he spoke, Howard thought about how one moment had changed everything, not just for him, but for an entire industry. A painful experience had become a powerful lesson. And somewhere another black man in a suit would walk into a bank and be treated with the respect he deserved because of what had happened that Friday afternoon 6 months ago. That, Howard thought, was worth more than $4 billion.